First up, we got Elliot Page. Elliot Page might be the only person that has directly called out Chris Pratt for his affiliation with the controversial Hillsong Church. Pratt spoke about the church with Stephen Colbert on his show, opening up further about his spirituality, but his comments did not sit well with Page, who took to Twitter to call out Pratt. Elliot tweeted, quote, "Okay, but his church is infamously anti-LGBTQ, so maybe address that too?" Adding in a follow-up tweet, quote, "If you are a famous actor and you belong to an organization that hates a certain group of people, don't be surprised if someone simply wonders why it's not addressed. Being anti-LGBTQ is wrong, there aren't two sides. The damage it causes is severe, full stop, sending love to all." After the situation got tons of media attention, Pratt took to Instagram to share his side of the story. Pratt wrote in part, quote, "It's been recently suggested that I belong to a church which hates people and is infamously anti-LGBTQ. Nothing could be further from the truth. I go to a church that opens their doors to absolutely everyone," adding that he's not the spokesperson for the Hillsong Church or any other group of people. And even though this is the most public feud that Pratt has been in regarding his support of LGBTQ people, many users online also allege that Pratt does not support gay marriage either. Next up, Dylan O'Brien. Dylan O'Brien was another star that got involved in the Chris Pratt-Elliot Page drama. After Elliot tweeted out asking Pratt to comment on the anti-LGBTQ nature of the church, Dylan supported that stance and quote tweeted Elliot's tweet, adding quote, "I second this." I don't believe Dylan commented any further on the matter, but he made sure to voice that he also had questions surrounding the inclusivity of the Hillsong Church. Next up, Anna Faris. Anna Faris and Pratt are now divorced, but they got married in 2009 and were together until they split in 2017. But since their split, Anna has described some things about their relationship that have some questioning Pratt. Speaking to guest Rachel Bilson on the May 3rd episode of her podcast, Anna Faris is Unqualified, Faris said she felt her quote hand was forced in the divorce from Pratt. When speaking about past relationships, Anna said quote, "For me, I think after every breakup at some point I realized that there were a lot of things I ignored that I really shouldn't have. In hindsight, it felt like my hand was forced. I don't think it was ever an independent decision." She also described that in her relationship with Pratt, she would never open up about the struggles that she had or the things that she was facing. She also said her lack of close girlfriends made it harder for her to open up about her struggles in her relationship. Faris added, quote, "I think it stunted me in a lot of ways, one of them being that I never talked about any issues, so to the people even who I was closest to, I'm sure things were more transparent with my relationship with Ben, but with Chris, I think we both protected that imagery even within our close circles." Basically saying that they both protected their image rather than actually working through their issues. Next up, Brie Larson. Brie did not directly call out Chris for anything, but Brie Larson was the catalyst that showed us just how sexist Hollywood can be. During the infamous scandal where the internet unanimously voted that Chris Pratt was the worst Chris, Pratt's Marvel co-stars like Mark Ruffalo and Robert Downey Jr. made a point to defend him against the hate. Both men, along with other MCU actors, jumped in to defend Pratt and share their positive stories with him. And although that support was deemed innocent at the time, it was then questioned why women like Brie Larson don't get the same treatment. After Brie Larson spoke out about diversity in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, saying that the MCU needed to be more diverse, she got intense backlash from Marvel fans, and the only MCU star that defended her at the time was Don Cheadle. Many took this to be blatant sexism. Next up, Jason Momoa. In December of 2019, Chris Pratt did a brand deal with Amazon where he shared his workouts with the world. In the photo, he's wearing workout gear next to a treadmill and holding a water bottle, clearly trying to show that he had just worked out. The response on the photo was great, and tons of Pratt's fans were swooning after the star. But fellow actor Jason Momoa had a different take on the photo and decided to share his disappointment with the water bottle choice. Momoa wrote, quote, "Bro, I love you, but what the F on the water bottle? No single-use plastic, come on." However, it seemed the public opinion actually sided with Pratt on this one, and Momoa ended up apologizing to Pratt on his Instagram. In Momoa's photo with Pratt and his kids, he wrote, quote, "Bro, you know my children and I are madly in love with you and I love everything you do. I'm sorry this was received so badly today, I didn't mean for that to happen." Next one, Chris Evans. Before Anna Faris and Chris Pratt broke up, Pratt starred in the film Passengers with Jennifer Lawrence, which created a lot of cheating buzz, because Jennifer and Chris Pratt were love interests in the film. Anna Faris had a hard time with the press saying that Jen and Chris were in love and cheating together, but apparently Jennifer Lawrence was very kind and was very apologetic even though she hadn't done anything wrong. But even though Anna had to suck it up and take it, it seems that wasn't the case for Chris Pratt when Anna was starring in a movie of her own with Chris Evans. While Anna and Chris Evans were filming romantic comedy What's Your Number, Pratt would apparently, quote, "bring up my kissing scenes with Chris Evans casually," with Faris writing in her book that he was never overt. Apparently Pratt would also casually ask, quote, "so when do you have to do that love scene with Evans?" And finally, Chris Pratt himself. The person that keeps getting Pratt in the most trouble is himself. I think over the years he has toned down on anything controversial, but there is a reason people assume he is a Republican and a Trump supporter. One thing that raised a lot of eyebrows was when he wore a top with a mashup of a Gadsden flag, which was designed during the American Revolution, and a modern US flag. The Gadsden flag involves a coiled rattlesnake over a message that reads, "Don't tread on me." The message has been used in a variety of ways over the years, but it's also been adopted by far-right political groups and Second Amendment supporters. So when Pratt decided to wear it out in 2019, many felt this was more proof he is a Republican. One person even tweeted about the shirt, quote, "Nice shirt. Only people I see with that flag are alt-right racists." Pratt also got a lot of heat for not attending a Joe Biden fundraiser ahead of his election, even though the entire Avengers cast was in attendance. Many felt this was more proof he was supporting Trump in that election. Firstly, we got Jessica Alba. Both Jessica Alba and Gwyneth Paltrow are lifestyle gurus that focus on clean beauty and natural products. So you'd think that these two would be the best of friends, considering they have so much in common. But it seems to be the exact opposite, and these two essentially hate each other. Gwyneth of course owns Goop, while Jessica Alba owns The Honest Company, which aims to emphasize household products to supply the marketplace for ethical consumerism. And they actually sell her products in Shoppers Drug Mart here in Canada, so that's very cool. Their relationship was put to the test on the set of their TV series, Planet of the Apps, where it was made clear that they hate each other. One insider claimed that the pair were like oil and water, to the point where it was shocking that they could agree on anything. Both women also took jabs at the other's company. Paltrow made a point to say Goop was an ethical company, contrasting legal claims that The Honest Company was not. Jessica Alba responded by claiming Goop was only for the wealthy, and that The Honest Company caters to real women. Of course, these disagreements spilled over to the show. Jessica is very hands-on while producing, while Gwyneth prefers to delegate tasks. The series never made it past the first season, I wonder why. Next up, Martha Stewart. Martha Stewart and Gwyneth Paltrow have been throwing subtle digs at each other for years, and it's clear that they do not like one another. It seems that Martha might actually be the one throwing most of the shade, if you can believe it. The feud started in 2014 when Martha was asked about Gwyneth for some reason. When speaking to Porter magazine, Stewart said that Paltrow, quote, "just needs to be quiet. She's a movie star. If she were confident in her acting, she wouldn't be trying to be Martha Stewart." Clearly, Martha thinks that Gwyneth is trying to take her place as a home and lifestyle guru. But that's not all. Martha took another swipe at Paltrow when she published a spread in Martha Stewart Living about a pie called Conscious Coupling, which is clearly a reference to Paltrow's conscious uncoupling from her ex-husband Chris Martin. Paltrow decided to hit back by making a Goop recipe for, quote, jailbird cake to reference Martha's time behind bars. Martha then took another dig on a 2017 episode of Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen when Martha asked, "Who's Goop?" Classic Mariah Carey stuff, if you get that joke. Next up, Sebastian Stan. Sebastian Stan is another celebrity that has shaded Gwyneth Paltrow in the past. Whether it was serious or not is the real question. It's been said before that Gwyneth does not have a good memory, as she often forgets that she's met or even worked with people before. One of the people she's forgotten was Sebastian Stan, even though they were both in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and they even starred in the same movies at one point, in Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. Even with that, Gwyneth still did not remember who he was. Sebastian exposed this to the world on Instagram. While they were both at Paris Fashion Week, they snapped a photo together in a big group, and his caption read, quote, "Glad I got to reintroduce myself to Gwyneth Paltrow for the third time," adding, quote, "We're in the same film," to make things even more shady. Hopefully Gwyneth took the shade well and doesn't forget him again. How could you forget him? Next up, NASA. Yep, you read that right. Even NASA has shaded Gwyneth in the past. It all started when Goop began promoting Body Vibe stickers, which according to Gizmodo, claimed to use, quote, NASA's spacesuit material to rebalance the energy frequency in our bodies. But it turned out that it was a load of BS, like pretty much everything else on the site. After some backlash, Body Vibes got rid of the NASA claim, claiming it was an error by the distributor. Goop addressed the error in a statement, writing, quote, "Our content is meant to highlight unique products and offerings, find open-minded alternatives, and encourage conversation." Which I guess is exactly what happened, because hey, we're talking about it at the end of the day. Next up, Vanity Fair. Gwyneth Paltrow generally has a pretty good relationship with the tabloids. However, her relationship with Vanity Fair is so bad that she tried to get her A-list friends to blacklist the magazine. Apparently, the entire feud between them was because the magazine published a story about Gwyneth that was not approved by her. And although it's a nice gesture for a magazine to show you their stories beforehand, it's certainly not something that celebrities are entitled to. According to Page 6, the feud was between Paltrow and the magazine's editor at the time, Graydon Carter. She was asked by Carter to collaborate on the content for their cover story, but Gwyneth decided to refuse because they had recently done an unflattering story on one of her ex-partners, Brad Pitt. When Paltrow turned down the offer, he decided to go along with publishing the piece anyway, much to Paltrow's dismay. In response to this, Gwyneth sent out an email to a slew of her A-list friends, telling them to blacklist the magazine. The tab reported that one quote from the email read, quote, "Vanity Fair is threatening to put me on the cover of their magazine. If you are asked for quotes or comments, please decline. Also, I recommend you all never do this magazine again." Apparently, this semi-threatening email did not make Carter back down, and it only made him want to publish the piece even more, commenting that the media does not have to look out for celebrities. Next up, Joan Rivers. Everyone knows that you should not mess with Joan Rivers unless you want to feel the heat, and it seems that Paltrow learned that the hard way. Joan's show Fashion Police is where she dished out most of the shade about celebrities. I miss that show so much. The feud between them started when Gwyneth made some digs at Joan's expense. In 2013, Gwyneth told Harper's Bazaar that she'd, quote, "never do Botox again because she looked crazy," which is fine, but then she added, quote, "I looked like Joan Rivers." And of course, after making comments like that, Joan's gonna clap back. And she took it out on a number of Gwyneth's outfits on Fashion Police. After some back and forth, Joan went on an episode of Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen. When asked which celebrity gave the worst criticism of Fashion Police, Joan said, quote, "The worst criticism was Gwyneth Paltrow. She came in and yelled at us, but she stood up. She can't sit down because she's got to stick up her rear end." Adding, quote, the world's most beautiful woman voted by Helen Keller and Stevie Wonder." So clearly it's more than just a little friendly fire, and the two really do not like each other. Next up, Simon Stevens. Simon Stevens is the chief executive of Britain's National Health Service, and we're talking about him today because he called out Gwyneth for the health treatments that she was promoting through Goop. During a 2020 event at Oxford, he took the time to trash the claims that Gwyneth was making on her Goop blog, along with her Netflix series, The Goop Lab. Stevens claimed that Gwyneth conveyed, quote, "considerable risks to health because she gave credence to, quote, quacks, charlatans, and cranks while promoting various untested wellness products and services." Some of his least favorite treatments promoted by Gwyneth are colonic irrigation and DIY coffee enema machines, which sound truly horrible. Stevens stressed that almost none of the claims she makes are backed up by science. Stevens definitely has a point, because Goop was actually forced to pay $145,000 in a settlement for false advertising, so he's not the only one doubting what she's selling. And lastly, Gwyneth Paltrow herself. Because Gwyneth was born into fame and fortune, she's grown up with the press and people watching her every move. That's why she makes a point to care as little as possible about what people say about her and do her own thing. However, this free attitude does get her into a lot of trouble with the public that find her snobby and out of touch. Sometimes Gwyneth can even find herself pretty insufferable. She told the Sunday Times' Style magazine that it took until age 40, quote, "to start getting my head out of my." Gwyneth has been open about the fact that fame changed her for the worst, and she didn't like herself a lot of points in the past. Apparently, after the success of Shakespeare in Love, she got insanely more famous and became her worst self. When speaking about her post-Oscar life, she said, quote, "Look, I'm famous. I get famous person treatment. You don't want to be an a-hole, but slowly if people start removing obstacles for you, if you live in a world where you never have to sit in line, where people don't confront you, where they don't tell you the truth, that's what you become. That's what I became. Luckily, my dad burst my bubble for me in a way that it could never be reconstructed." First up, we got Samantha Ware. Samantha Ware started the entire downfall of Lea Michele back in 2020 after she called out Michelle for the way that she acted on the set of Glee. Ware appeared on season 6 of Glee, and she didn't get along well with Lea. When Lea Michele posted tweets in support of George Floyd after his passing, Ware decided to call out Michelle on the hypocrisy. She commented, quote, "Remember when you made my first television gig a living hell?" adding that Michelle was microaggressive towards her, and even threatened to defecate in her wig, if you can believe that. Ware's experience with Michelle was so bad that it made her question a career in the industry. Michelle later apologized for her behavior, but Ware did not accept and told Lea to open her purse if she really wanted to help. Next up, Amber Riley. Amber Riley is another Glee cast member that had terrible things to say about Lea. Riley was a cast member for all 6 seasons of Glee, so she definitely knew the true Lea. After Samantha Ware's comments, Riley weighed in by posting some gifs of her sipping tea, clearly commenting on what was going on. Riley weighed in further during an interview on Real Quick with Danielle Young. She explained that she did not believe that Lea was racist, but she just believed that she was a stuck-up brat who was power tripping on everyone. However, Riley did say that just because Lea might not be a racist doesn't mean that race doesn't play a factor in these bad interactions. Adding, quote, "In my inbox there are a lot of black actors and actresses telling me their stories and letting me know that they have dealt with the same things on set, being terrorized by the white girls that are leads of the show." So clearly it's something that really needs to be discussed in the industry. Next up, Heather Morris. Glee's Heather Morris did not hold back when sharing her disdain of Lea. After Lea's behavior became a topic of conversation, Morris was shy at first, but later became very vocal against the star. Morris tweeted out that she didn't want to send more hate to Lea at the time, but she confirmed that Lea was very unpleasant to work with and was very disrespectful to everyone on set. And Morris believed that Lea needed to be called out for her behavior. When speaking about race, Morris said that she could not comment on if she thought Lea was racist, but that was the assumption at the time. Morris later revealed that while filming Glee, everyone was way too scared to speak up to the Fox executives. However, she's glad it's a different time and there's more of a demand for respect on set, saying, quote, "We absolutely could have stepped up and gone to the Fox execs and said how we really felt about the situation, and no one really did. Now we're living in a culture where it's acceptable to do things like that, whereas I think many people were very scared." Next up, Yvette Nicole Brown. Yvette Nicole Brown and Lea Michele starred in a short-lived show on ABC called The Mayor. And even though Brown is never involved in Hollywood drama, she spoke up about her time with Michele after Samantha Ware publicly tweeted out against her. Brown responded to Ware's initial tweet, writing, quote, "I felt every one of those capital letters. Every person on a set matters. Every person on a set deserves respect. And it's the responsibility of every series regular to make every person who visits their home feel welcome. This dismissive attitude is what's wrong in Hollywood and the world." And although Brown never mentioned Lea by name here, many assume that Michele exhibited the same behavior on the set of that show, and that's what caused her to speak out. Brown also spoke about her time on the hit show Community, saying the experience was not as toxic, with Brown saying that someone defecating in her wig was something that never would have been said on the Community set. And thank God for that. Gerard Canatico. Gerard Canatico worked alongside Michele when they were an understudy in the play Spring Awakening. Canatico actually commented on Lea Michele's Instagram apology after she started receiving tons of backlash. However, his comment was suspiciously deleted. Wonder what happened. So he commented again, writing, quote, "My first comment seems to have been deleted, so I'll try again. You were nothing but a nightmare to me and fellow understudy cast members. You made us feel like we didn't belong there. I tried for years to be nice to you to no avail. Maybe actually apologize instead of placing the blame on how others, quote, perceive you. You'll probably just delete this though." This comment clearly taking a shot at the part in Michele's apology where she said that people perceived their negative experiences with her. Next up, Abigail Breslin. Abigail Breslin and Lea Michele worked alongside each other in the show Scream Queens. If you haven't seen it, it's actually one of my favorite shows. Breslin is probably the most high-profile actor to speak out against Michele. However, since Breslin did not want to get caught up in drama, she decided to like some negative tweets about Michele instead, basically in order to get her point across but not actually speak out directly. Breslin liked a tweet that said, quote, "Not everyone agreeing that something felt off about Lea Michele. Where have y'all been? I've been saying this for years. I thought I was alone." So clearly Breslin agreed with the sentiment that something felt off about Lea, and people tried to speak up about it for years. Next up, Naya Rivera. Naya Rivera was the only person that had the guts to share their feelings about Lea Michele before she was exposed by Samantha Ware. The two worked alongside each other for all seasons of Glee, so Rivera got an inside look into Michele's true character. The two actually got into a big fight on set in 2014, and Rivera exposed it in her memoir that was published in 2016. Rivera says the two started off as friends, but over time they started to hate each other. Rivera believed this was partially because her character of Santana moved from a background character to a main one over time, and Michele didn't like sharing the spotlight. A few years later, it seemed that the two had partially made up, and on a 2019 episode of Watch What Happens Live, Rivera said that her and Michele had no bad blood, and she even liked Michele's Instagram engagement post. However, it's wild to hear that she had such a bad experience with Michele, especially being a woman of color. And lastly, Elizabeth Aldrich. Broadway actress Elizabeth Aldrich was Lea Michele's understudy in the Broadway show Ragtime. This was early in both their careers, and even as a child, apparently Michele was a nightmare to work with. Aldrich shared a statement on Twitter along with a picture of both of them as children. Aldrich said in part that Michele was awful to work with, adding, quote, "She demeaned the crew and threatened to have people fired if she was in any way displeased. I used to cry every night from the mean and manipulative things she would do. She was 12. She was terrifying." Aldrich went on to say that she's no longer in the acting world, but she wanted to share her story of working with Michele to validate other people's stories about her. Aldrich also added that she hopes that becoming a mother changes Lea's behavior.